Hello and welcome to our National Careers Week Assembly. My name is Phil Hayes. I'm one of the co-founders of Kloodle, and in this assembly I'm going to interview 4 people who are in the world of work, doing different career pathways, and will hopefully provide you with an insight into what they do on a daily basis, what their job entails, what qualifications they got in order to get to where they are now, and any advice they may have to you as somebody embarking on your career pathway yourselves. What will come across in these interviews is that there is no one set way to access a career, and that each individual had different approaches and different experiences to get to the place they are at today. So I interviewed Sarah Beaumont, who is the director of Woodcock, Howarth and Nuttall Solicitors, and she followed a fairly linear pathway, going from GCSEs to A-levels to university and then into legal practice, and ultimately on to being a director and a partner in the firm, right through to Charlie Morrison, who after college got a record deal which ultimately fell apart, and he went and had to get the first job that he was able to come across. And whilst in that job, he did massively well, went on to get other jobs, was successful in that, and ultimately became a company director as well for a company called Walk the Plank, who produce works of art for productions and events. We also speak to John Pemberton, who's a dietitian in the NHS, working specifically with diabetic young people, helping them to manage their conditions. And he had years out before ultimately going to university, then choosing a master's degree and going into practice with the NHS. Through to Martin Cropper, who is a personal development manager for the Professional Cricketers Association, and he helps professional cricketers, both current international players through to retired players, through to new players making their way in the game, and he helps them make choices around how to manage their mental health, how to formulate career plans for after they exit the game, and everything in between. And he also followed a hugely varied career pathway, going through to sports coaching in the USA, to cricket coaching in Australia, and then ultimately to his current role in the PCA. What will come across, hopefully, is that no one specific occurrence made these people's careers successful or otherwise. It was a series of decisions and then responses. So everybody faced the choices that you are facing currently. What grades do you need to get? What subject should I study? What should I do at college? Should I go to college? Should I choose an apprenticeship? And all these decisions formulate the pathway that you ultimately go on, but none of those decisions will prove to be right or wrong. It is merely your response to what happens that will ultimately determine your success. So we speak to people who made the wrong choice for A-levels, wish they did something differently. We speak to people who failed GCSEs, who failed A-levels. We speak to people who didn't know what they wanted to do until the last year when they're in their 30s. And we speak to people who still don't know what they want to do. So what should come across is that in these uncertain times where you might feel that a predicted grade might have a massive impact on your life, or a subject choice that you're about to make for college will have a huge bearing on what your success looks like in the future, I want you to bear in mind that none of these people all these people had those same worries, but ultimately these didn't manifest themselves in anything tragic or terminal. Responses were made, new choices developed, new skills developed, new qualifications sought, new experiences taken, and ultimately a career pathway follows a non-linear trajectory, and it is a series of decisions and responses. So whilst you may feel that the current times are challenging and that they present uncertainties to you, what I will say is that what comes across in these videos is that if you can focus on what is in front of you, work as hard as you can in the given situation, and come up with the best possible responses to what you're being presented with currently, you will ultimately be successful. You don't have to make the right choices now. You can make the right choices down the line. I think Charlie Morrison sums it up best. When he was 21, he thought he was ridiculously old. He's now in his 40s and he still feels young. So despite the fact you may feel that if you make a misstep and you have to take a year out, or you have to make a different choice, ultimately that won't make a massive amount of difference. Just stick with what you're doing, stick with your strength of convictions, work as hard as you possibly can, and enjoy watching the careers interviews that are about to follow.
Yeah, so my name is John Pemberton. I work as a diabetes dietitian / educator for the NHS. But a typical week for me would be at least 3 half days doing education sessions. So that might be children and young people who are starting on a continuous glucose monitor to help manage the diabetes. I would do the training for that. Or starting on an insulin pump would be another one. Or we have patients who have just been recently diagnosed who need basically all the skills and knowledge to be empowered to manage the condition themselves. We run lots of education sessions to try and build that self-empowerment. So that's probably 3 half-days a week. Another 3 half-days a week are clinic slots where we will see patients one-to-one. And from a dietitian perspective, I will often ask a lot of questions around food, nutrition, exercise and sleep, and see if there are some things that can be tweaked so that it can help not only the diabetes control, but their health moving forward.
My name's Charlie Morrison. I'm an ex-Woodhay pupil. My current job is Executive Director of a company called Walk the Plank. We describe ourselves as an outdoor art specialist. We produce kind of spectacular events. So by that, we mean things that normally involve quite large public events or gatherings. So one that people might know is the Manchester Day Parade, which is an annual event where there's a huge parade through the centre of Manchester. It's about 80,000 people lining the streets in the audience. And it features between 15 and 20 huge parade floats. So what we do is we work with communities and we fabricate or we build those floats with them, which involves a huge array of different skill sets and welders and technicians and designers, as well as artists and that kind of thing. So that's one of the things that we've also produced huge kind of closing ceremonies for the European Capital of Culture cities around Europe. We do major firework displays around the country, London, Newcastle, so the kind of big civic city centre firework displays. But we also do a lot of work in communities. So we go and do smaller events where we'll kind of focus on working with kids from schools or local community groups to make things like fire drawings, or just pieces of sculpture that will then sit in situ at their school or at their playing fields for a time. And my job is I'm kind of one of the bosses. So there's artistic bosses and then there's me. And I take care of all the finances, the HR. I have to make sure that all the building stuff is in order, all the legal stuff. And I support all the strategy from a very practical point of view that helps the company achieve its artistic aims, really. So if someone comes up with an insane, amazing idea for a project, I will work with them to help see how that can happen in reality.
My name is Martin Cropper. I'm a personal development manager for the Professional Cricketers Association. My role is to work with professional cricketers and former professional cricketers on personal development and welfare, and to really support them with all facets of life off the pitch, with a key eye on supporting them to transition into the game safely, but then to transition out of the game safely so that they can continue into a second career path. All sporting people have to sporting career comes to an end at some point, and they have to then move into something, because not everyone earns hundreds of millions of pounds like professional football players. The average salary for a professional cricketer is around £45,000–50,000 a year, which is, whilst a sizable sum of money, isn't going to set them up for the sort of 30–40 years after they finish playing. Also, the average retirement is 27 in cricket. So when a player leaves the game between sort of 24 and 27, they're actually financially probably in line with their peers, but now they have a drop off in salary, whereas their peers' careers will continue to go in a different direction. So our job is to make sure that they've got one mind to that, and that they prepare for that whilst they're in career.
So my name is Sarah Beaumont. I am a solicitor and also an owner of the business Woodcocks, Howarth and Nuttall. My role as a solicitor specifically is advising companies about commercial disputes, so any sort of fallings out they have with other companies or individuals, customers, suppliers, that kind of thing. So that's the day-to-day role. In terms of being a business owner, that involves managing people. I manage an office of about 35 staff. So just dealing with general day-to-day issues with them, and also looking more strategically across the business with my fellow business owners. There's 10 of us in total, looking at how we can build the business and grow the business for the future.
Yeah, so at school, I always loved PE, loved sport. So I think, I can't remember whether I did sports studies at GCSE or PE, but, you know, I did something along those lines. But I was also always interested in people. So I really enjoyed, I did sociology at GCSE, which actually I regret not taking forward as I did in my A levels. But I always enjoyed sociology. I was active with sports clubs and so forth. I played a lot of football, played a lot of cricket, and I was already actively coaching in terms of the traditional sport coaching at 15, 16. And started doing my coaching badges. I think I did my first ECB coaching badge when I was 16 and did my football FA level 1 when I was 17. So I was already sort of had a passion for that. When I went to A level, I did sports studies. I did art. Art was my other big passion. I nearly went to university to do art, but I realised maybe I was more skilled or better placed to maybe go in the sport world. And I did biology at A level, which I actually got a D in.
So my A levels were in English, Spanish, psychology, and performing arts. So a real mix of subjects. But you know, I think some good essay-based subjects, I guess, in terms of the English and the psychology, the performing arts, just because I enjoyed it. I think it's important to do something that you enjoy as well.
And that's probably quite an interesting thing. So I did PE, which I got an A in. I did sociology. Why did I choose that? Because I wanted to do something that was slightly different. I didn't particularly want to do sociology. I was more psychology. I was more interested in societal systems rather than individuals at that time, which I found interesting. I also did computing.
Largely, I've had a really hopscotch career, and when I left college, so I went from Woodhay to Stan College to do A levels, and in the middle of my A levels, I was in a band and we got a record deal. So I didn't go to university. I did the band for a few years, which then split up and all went horribly wrong. And I just started to, I just went for the first job I could find, which happened to be like a bit of an admin person at a stockbroker's office. And then I realized that I really wanted to work in music because that was my passion. So from that point, I just kind of stepped my way from opportunity to opportunity in that part of the sector. So really, my experience just comes from working my way through jobs and understanding how teams work, what needs to happen to make something happen, like what needs to happen with the finances or the organization or the production of something just to make it happen. How company strategy works a little bit. So seeing what bosses are thinking and what they want to achieve and how the teams underneath them support that. You know, all that's been going on for me for like 20 odd years. I've not just started. And so even the financial stuff I just picked up as I went from colleagues and small bits of training here and there, and just kind of learn through experience.
Yeah, so I think at some point when I was at school, I got it in my head that was what I wanted to do. I can't actually remember why. I did a law degree at university. Then at that point, you have to sort of decide whether you want to be a solicitor or a barrister. I'd always preferred the idea of the solicitor. So I went off and did a specific course called the legal practice course that you have to do, and then got the job with Woodcock South and Nuttall to train with them for 2 years before qualifying.
Yeah, I can't say I purposely chose anything for any real significant reason at GCSEs other than PE. That was about it. That's all I can really remember. I don't really remember the options being. I wouldn't look back now and said, "Wow, that was a defining moment to kind of lead me on a pathway." It was just more of whatever I was interested in. I always found the more you're interested in something, the more you're willing to work hard and do a decent piece of work.
The universities that I was applying to were generally looking for, I think, 2 A's and a B. Didn't specifically matter what subjects they were in, but obviously different universities will look for different grade requirements.
It all comes down to who you are as a person and understanding who you are and what you need. Some people really need a real structured plan and say, right, this is where I'm going to be and this is how I'm going to do it. For me, the challenge with that is, what happens if you don't? What does that mean to you as a person? So say, right, I want to achieve X by the age of 25 and you don't get, does that mean you're a failure? Do you see yourself as a failure? So therefore, it's actually saying, well, I've got some ideas about what I want to do, and I've got some ideas about things that are important to me. How do I create opportunities around that, and understanding that you can be quite fluid? And I think that comes down to really understanding what you need from yourself and what structure you need. But for me, it was never a problem being quite fluid and just sort of going through it, because I believed in myself as an employee. I understood my skills and what I was capable of. So I said, I believe that I will always be in a good position to find a job that suits me. When I came back from America, prior to my master's, I applied. I got rejected from sort of 4 jobs, which in retrospect I could do with my eyes closed, you know, and you say, well, actually that's fine. That's their loss. But I think when you're 15, 16, I think part of it is you haven't, for me, we don't do enough self-awareness at school, understanding who we are as a person at that point in time and what are our interests, and allowing those to grow. It's being very subject heavy, and actually subjects are just part of, as you said, my role is sociology, psychology, mental health, career planning, coaching and mentoring. Those facets will fill up my one job. So I think it's what interests you and being prepared to go forward with it. But if you do need a plan to make you feel better about it, well, then don't be afraid of doing that either.
It's something that we offer as a firm. We've got 3 apprentices at the moment at different levels. Some that have been to university but haven't then gone on to do the further study after that and want to do that through the apprenticeship scheme instead. Others that have either come straight out of high school into sort of the world of work and have gone into an apprenticeship that way, or even after sixth form college.
I did my undergraduate degree, which is 3 years, and I did a 2-year postgraduate diploma in dietetics, which is the conversion course. You can do a 4-year undergrad to go to be straight to a dietitian, or you can do a different undergrad and then go do a 2-year postgrad to become a dietitian. So I did that, which was 1 year theory, and then the second year effectively was all out on placement, doing the dietitian's job whilst learning at the same time. Obviously start with the basic elements and build up from there.
And so I literally walked into the first employment agency off the bus at Piccadilly Square in Manchester and took the first thing I was offered, because I needed to pay the bills and I had no idea what to do next. There could have been loads of things that I could have done. I could have gone back to college, but I thought I was too old. You know, I was 21 by then.
Getting knocking on a bit.
So I was really frazzled. I didn't know what to do, really. I just thought I need a job and took one.
I love working with high performing people, working in space of I love my cricket, obviously, so that really helps, but I'd love to do this job even in any sport, really. I love the individual nature of it. I work with 100 different individuals, as I said before, and each of them present different things. And just learning new things every day, learning things about people, learning gaps in my knowledge, learning how I can be a better practitioner, and learning about I think for me, learning that it doesn't matter what level you see someone on the television at, they're still a person and they've still got their own challenges, and so like I work with international players, and actually once you sit down and have a coffee with them, it's just like me and you having a chat now, and there's no difference. That's what I love most about it.
You know what, like I say, it's helping businesses, solving the problems. They don't want to be spending loads of time and loads of money on dealing with legal issues. They want to be running their business, you know, whatever that business is. So I think it is, you know, solving their problems. When you get a really good result, and you know you've done a really good job, then yeah, that's a nice feeling.
Our company works in a way that so there's like a core office team, and then we hire freelancers to do a lot of the artistic work. And they range from welders to joiners to dancers to kind of clothes technicians, to all kinds of different makers and skill sets that we bring in. We also take on internships and placements in all of them. And the way that people become a walk the plank regular freelancer and part of our wider team is down to work ethic. It's down to their ability to really put their heart and soul into things, to work really well with other team members, to be open and honest and ready for someone to say, oh, could you just look at this for me? To go, yeah, I'll have a look, but could you show me what to do? You know, that kind of attitude goes way further than most other things in a place like ours.
Really, if you do the things that you enjoy, you'll likely put a lot more time in, and you will also immerse yourself in that learning, and that will be a lot more fruitful. You'll enjoy what you do, and you'll put a lot more work in, and you'll get a lot more out of it, is what I would say is probably the biggest thing. And then a second thing is probably define your own success metrics. And by that, I mean, right now, my current success metrics are being a good dad, being a good husband, being a good type 1 diabetes educator, and a nice mix of all those three. It shouldn't just be about money. It shouldn't just be about power. It shouldn't just be about fame, because those things are all based around what someone else is earning, what someone else looks like, how famous someone else is. It's nothing to do with improving yourself. They're all looking outward. So look a little bit more inwards to define your own success metrics and just get after those rather than somebody else's.
1, read more. I wish I'd read more and got into a habit of reading more of a broad range of things. 2, be reflective, you know, however that looks, and just explore your reality, explore what's going on in your life. What do you like? What don't you like? And being curious about yourself. And the 3rd one is, don't be afraid of being good. I think part of it, and I mean that and I'm not trying to say I was good, but don't be afraid of being good at something, and don't be brought down to other people's level. Find your own level, create your own level, and you know, if you're bright, if you're talented at something, if you're own it. Have humility, but just go, right, yeah, crack on and really make the most of those skills, because that's what's going to set you up in life. That's what's going to help you when you're not 16 at school anymore and you're 25 and you don't see your mates anymore. You know, you're in a different world. It's those people that go places. So I think that would be sort of the big 3 for me.
Really, what we tend to look for, you know, obviously good academics are important, but also just seeing that someone's a hard worker. You know, that perhaps they've had part-time jobs, or they've done voluntary work, or just to show that they've done something other than, you know, other than their academics. And I think, you know, we tend to see a lot of people now that have, you know, worked alongside studying, or they've had bits of, you know, time out from studies, where they've been sort of working or volunteering. That kind of thing. So I think that's really important.
I would really say just to try and follow something you're passionate about, because the less like a job your job is, when it comes to a job for life, the happier you are going to be. And I think just to follow your passion and your heart, and not be pressured into thinking you should be doing something that you don't feel comfortable with, is probably the best advice I could give my 15-year-old self.